are the.
All right, what's going on? Brian Carroll here, PRS Strength Auxiliary headquarters or whatever it may be, right? Today, I'm bringing to you a conversation that I had at Arnold 2024 weekend with my friend and strength coach, Paul Oneid. Paul's actually Canadian, but went to school in South Florida and got his master's degree in like kinesiology, exercise science, something like that. No disrespect, but Paul's been a strength coach for a long time. And we've been friends for over 10 years. And in this conversation, we talk about mental health and training. Paul's struggle with leaning on strength training as a crutch at times, maybe even an addiction at times, like it has been with me. And all things strength training. We talk about 10-20 life and how we had to bring him on board when he was writing for me and change some of his frequency and some of his training styles and how it was hard for him to make these adjustments. Most recently, Paul, after a layoff of powerlifting or from powerlifting for a couple of years, suffered a serious injury of a double quad avulsion, double quad tendon avulsion. So he had to go into surgery right away, was in bilateral casts, and allow him to heal his quadricep tendons. So we wish him the best of luck. Also, a spotter was very seriously injured and lost part of his pinky. So prayers for Paul and the spotter and everyone affected in this, unfortunately, sometimes common issue in powerlifting where people just get hurt. Sometimes it's just one of those things that you do it enough times, you go to the well so many times, people are going to get hurt. I'm not saying that you should get hurt if you powerlift or if you spot people, you're going to get hurt, but it's just big people lifting big weights. Sometimes they blow out and the bar comes off their back, and unfortunately, people's fingers get crushed. I've seen it happen a few different times. So prayers for everyone affected from this incident. Paul's on the mend. Paul is on the way to a speedy recovery. We've spoken a few times since his injury, and he's doing good. And as always, he's learning from it and taking the positive from it. So once again, enjoy this conversation with my friend Paul Oneid before his injury. And maybe we'll do a follow-up here in the coming weeks to months as he heals up and learns something new from this process. Drop a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy this conversation with Paul Oneid. We're at the Arnold, and I'm with one of my friends, Paul Oneid, from Canada via Texas, or however that goes, right? You're staying in Texas now.
Yep.
You love
Texas for the winter.
And you like it?
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah, so a few years back, Paul was like one of the coaches on PRS Strength and kept a log and wrote, and then he started training with Bird.
Yep.
Right? So Coach Bird, Jonathan Bird, 2,500 pound total at 275 in 2016. Good coach, 2,500 pound total lifter. He started working with you, and he changed some of the he changed some of the ways that you looked at training and like made you do some things that like you weren't like comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me take you back before you started working with Bird. So we're talking like probably 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Something had happened, and you and I were talking about training, and you're like, I just can't train this little. I can't do it.
Yeah. Well,
like, because I need this outlet. I can't not train this much.
Yeah.
You remember that conversation?
I do, for sure.
So I ended up saying, okay, I don't remember exactly how that went, but I did say, basically, keep doing the way you are. But if you don't have a good meet this time, then go let Bird coach you with less volume and different frequency or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I remember exactly what happened. So I had a knee surgery. And then it was prior to having the knee surgery that you and I worked together. You helped me out a little bit.
Yeah.
You pulled me way back. And that's when we had that conversation. I'm like, bro, I can't do this. Because I was, at that point, everything in my identity was tied into training.
Yeah.
Ended up having to have the surgery. Came back, tried to train the way I wanted to. And you said that. You said, if you can keep training like this, you have a good meet. That's cool. But if you don't, I want you to work with Bird.
Yeah.
I said, okay, cool. I ended up going like 5 for 9, having, for all intents and purposes, like after a knee surgery, I did okay, but I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And you knew that. And so I said, okay, I'm give it a shot.
Yeah.
And it was going from polar opposites because prior to the knee surgery and you helping me out, I was working with Chad Smith.
Yeah.
So it was crazy high volume, tons of training, all the way to Bird. I'm sure even went further back than he normally would, just almost to prove a point.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. You have to ask him.
And, but I bought in. I said, listen, I've done it my way for so long, and I have had success.
Right.
I totaled 1930 at 220.
Yeah.
My weight. I said, okay, I'm going to let him have the reins.
Yeah.
I had a great meet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we did 8 months together.
Mm-hmm.
And ended up going in 1960 at 242. Biggest deadlift by like 30 pounds. 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Tied my best bench, PR of my squat. And it could have been, honestly, it could have been more had I put it all together in the same day.
Yeah. It could have been 2000.
It could have been 2000.
Yeah. So I know that you basically gave your word to me that you would work with Bird and like embrace like the philosophy we were using, but basically just out of the book and just expanding, experimenting, whatever. Mm-hmm. It was an adjustment for you, but how did you handle the mental aspect of training a lot less and not having that outlet?
It was a challenge.
Yeah.
Sure. I had to almost revamp, number one, coping strategies with life stress.
Yeah.
Like I really didn't have anything else other than the catharsis of training.
Right.
And so I had to relearn a lot about who I was. And to be fair, I think it was a big step forward on that side of things because I was forced to find other ways. I was forced to, do more reflection and figure out like why I was feeling the way I was feeling about things. And I'm better off for it now because I know when to pull back. I know when to push. And I know I'm going to return to a lot of those same principles once I decide to get back on the platform again.
So what's one thing that you liked about Coach Bird in 1020 and something you'd recommend to, let's say, a younger lifter about the philosophy, not just like 1020 lifestyle in the book, but like something you learned from that process of working with Bird, trying some completely different principles from a successful approach that does work, high volume, high frequency, high intensity. Mm-hmm. Dude, it works. There's no arguing that. Yep. But then you end up just exploiting. Yeah, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So with that said, what's one thing that you could tell the people out there that are sucked into the 3 times a week pro? Those are most of my back clients. Powerlifters. They're like, yeah, what's I had a 16-year-old that had a busted up back, girl that was a weightlifter, and yeah, she's squatting and deadlifting 3 times a week with like terrible form and no core, and dude, she about ruined her back at 16. They're wanting to do operations on her in some special experimental surgery in Indiana.
Oh, jeez.
Right? They're trying to do it. They're like, hey, can you see her? Like, literally all she had to do was like stop lifting for a little bit and stop doing the PT that they prescribed them that allowed her to fail, and then say you need surgery.
Right.
Yeah, she's fine. She's been lifting and she's fine. It's so weird to think about those programs and what they do. Some people are more resilient for whatever reason. There's a bunch of different reasons why. A lot of it's luck, genetics, and that's
it's survival bias at the end of the day. Like the people that espouse these types of training methodologies and are able to do it for a really long time.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have survived and have been able to do it a really long time. So they can say that it's amazing. But you don't hear from that girl or the lifter who can't sustain that.
Yeah.
It's like the Russian system back in the day. It's like, yeah, the Russian system was successful for the people that were able to go through the Russian system.
Yeah.
But everyone else failed.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one thing, it would probably be that peaking strength does not require you to lift heavy all the time.
Yeah.
Even leading into a meet, I never took more than probably halfway between an opener and a second.
Right.
I never pushed 95% plus. I never needed to.
Save it for the meet. We were talking about that earlier. That's why the philosophy of the kind of the way I outlined it, that just to keep someone basically underloading a lot of the time, build the volume, get stronger in the off season, and then roll it into pre-contest. But what's something about 1020 life that you would recommend to like younger kids?
Just train later.
Like the people that are doing the high frequency, high volume, the sexy stuff, and it's fun to be able to lift 3 times a week. You know, to lift because you can get good at it quick. It's exciting. kids get bored easy, so they want to train again.
I would return back to, why are you training? If you're training to get stronger, then train to get stronger, which doesn't require high outputs all the time, high volumes all the time. In fact, it requires the opposites: technical execution, rate of force development, training to get stronger rather than training to train.
Right.
And I think that's, again, coming back to the identity piece. I was training to train, and by proxy, I ended up getting really strong.
You did. Yeah.
As soon as I started training to get strong, well, all of a sudden, I didn't have the injuries that I was having. I didn't have the overuse injuries I was having. And it showed in my totals.
Yeah.
I had a few bad breaks since that big meet where, I had some ongoing hip and knee stuff from the surgery. And it's funny, this is probably the first time I've ever told you about this, but like, training after I started having those issues was the lowest volume training I've ever done.
Yeah.
It was one single a week was my squat volume.
Yeah.
And the rest of it was single leg work, core work.
Yeah.
Just staying resilient so that I could sustain that one single a week.
Right.
Had I not had the experience in knowing that I don't need to train heavy and high volume all the time, I don't think I would have been able to go through and have multiple successful meets after that. Especially when I transitioned to sneakers.
What do you do to fix your knees? What do you recommend to someone out there? I know that it's not just knee pain, we're going to treat it all this way, but for what you went through, what do you recommend the process? Like, obviously, I know the back, and I'd say, here's what you start with. Someone with knee pain. I have some people that can't do a split squat or lunge to help save their back, so that's out. Their knees are shot. They can't walk to help save their back. So other than knees that are just simply worn out and need to be replaced, like someone like you that had janky knees, had surgery, scopes, whatever, what do you recommend to rebuild the knee?
Number one's load management. So reducing the volume to a volume that you can sustain.
Right.
So for me, that was one single a week.
Right.
I was still able to get very strong. I PR'd my sleeve squatted 722 at 220 in sleeves.
Right.
So it was load management. After that, I would say a big part is focusing on tempo. I think making light weights very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Is something most people miss out on, especially in the powerlifting realm. They look at assistance work as moving A to B.
Yeah.
Well, assistance work moving A to B, that's what you do with your squat, bench, and deadlift.
Yeah.
Assistance work is for tendon strength.
Yeah.
It's for, resilience in the joints, movement capacity.
Right.
So treating my accessories in a way that made the lightest weights as hard as possible allowed me to recover better.
Yeah.
And also let me get more out of them. That way I'm not eating up all of my,
Something like that, shot. Right. Pretty close to that shot. It's all good, man. It's life. I'm alive. You're lever good. So we need to continue on.
No, you said that with Canadian. You got guns. So I would say treating assistance work for what it is, making lightweights as hard as possible so you're not eating up all your recovery reserve there.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people don't give credence to assistance work, and they just focus on the squat, bench, and deadlift all the time.
Or they think that, whatever the latest fad in assistance work is like the key for them. Like, so for instance, Jefferson curls right now. That is the key to unlocking everything. Your back mobility, back strength, be strong and super bent over flexion.
I love the word reliable.
Yeah, it's just a new thing, and then it'll swing back around, and then reverse hypers will get really popular again, and then people fad assistance exercises, this new ab thing or whatever. It's always something, and staying away from those things is like a big. If you can stick with the basics, like. Even going back to the first book I ever read about training, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding, and I learned a lot of like basic principles about that. But circling back, the knee gave you some problems, and it lowered your volume down to just singles a week.
Yeah. At that point, I was at a point where I just wasn't enjoying training at that point.
Yeah.
So for me, I do need to enjoy the training, because otherwise, why am I doing it? And if my load management was to the point where like I couldn't sustain any volume, I knew something had to change. So I stepped away, trained for bodybuilding for about a year, ended up doing a show. So about a year and a half later, I did the show, and now I'm about a year and a half back into transitioning the power lift back in with no knee pain, no hip pain, and I'm starting to feel strong again.
Yeah.
So get back in the popcorn.
So you seem a lot more relaxed and confident with yourself over the last few years, especially going back to 2015. Was it an ayahuasca trip, peyote in the desert? Was it ibogaine down in Mexico? So what was it?
No, so I went through in 2019, 2020, I went through divorce. And for me, that was a very powerful opportunity for me to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because ultimately we are the compounding interests of our decisions over time.
Yeah.
No one forced me to be in a relationship with the person I was in. No one forced me to get married. These are all choices that I was making. And through that process, through a lot of therapy, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of learning, I really got to know more about who I am, what my motivations are, what the incentive system was in my life. And I reframed a lot of the ways I think about my place within the world. I don't feel stressed the same way I used to. I don't feel anxiety the same way I used to. There's a lot more of an acceptance of circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also an ownership over outcomes. So if I'm not getting the outcomes that I want, life is a series of input-output equations. So if I'm not liking the outputs, I have to change the inputs. The only one that has control over the inputs is me.
Right.
That's a very calm place to be.
Yeah.
So even today, like I don't love being in massive social situations like the Arnold.
I didn't like it as much this year.
It's very hectic.
So it's different
this
year?
Yeah.
So it was just my...
No. It's very hectic. The lines were crazy. There was more people too.
Yeah, especially early on a Friday. Like Saturday, it's going to be crazy because some people aren't getting in until like late Friday afternoon. They'll come for a bit and then hammer it on Saturday.
But at this point, I'm going in with the expectation that's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
And that crazy situation doesn't make me anxious.
Especially when you take a Valium.
I went the opposite direction, just hammering Zen packs.
Yeah. Zen. Do you like Zen?
Great for my productivity.
Is it?
Zen, caffeine, and modafinil. And some microdose mushrooms. Very good.
Yeah. Okay. What's the worst training mistake you ever made? And then how did you rectify it when Bird started putting some of our philosophies, approaching it just specific customized work, not doing so much volume, having just little ramps and deloads and tapers? Like,
I think that's I'm going to give a broad answer, but I think it plays into the rest of the conversation, is having an emotional attachment to training.
okay.
I think that was the biggest mistake, because it led to the volume, the intensity. Once I removed emotion from it,
Right.
I really looked at it as the goal here is to get as strong as possible. How I feel in a given day matters in my outputs. So I need to match the inputs to the outputs, and I can't be emotional about the inputs.
Okay.
So if on a day you're not feeling it, pull back. If on a day you are feeling it within the parameters, great, push forward. But if you're deloading every third week or fourth week, whatever you choose,
Or even fifth. Like, you could probably work if you deload every fifth week.
well,
People made such a straw man out of that.
Oh.
Yeah, you got to deload because you're going to break and fall apart if you miss a deload. It's just like, these people don't understand that it's probably a good idea just for overall biology and adaptation, just to let things calm down for a bit.
detraining takes time. You're not going to detrain in a week.
Yeah.
And now the approach that I use is, because I don't push high volumes anymore,
Yeah.
I don't need deloads as often. I'm also not lifting as heavy as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that when I transition into a meet prep, I should rephrase that. The deloads are almost built into my programming now, because when I'm training to get stronger, I know that I can't squat and deadlift heavy in the same week. I know that I can't deadlift heavy more than once every third week.
Right.
I regress. So if I'm only deadlifting heavy once every third week, I'm only squatting heavy once every other week, I'm only benching once every other week,
you
can
were coaching pretty
you
good.
can push the deloads longer because you're not driving up towards that maximum recoverable capacity. And that's the approach that I take with a lot of my lifters now. A lot of my lifters do not lift heavy in training, even leading up into a meet. Again, keeping it below that threshold. And I know that if and when I decide to compete again, which ideally will be towards the end of this year.
You made that decision because we talked about that last year. I'm Swiss, like you want, like literally.
I want to. I really want to, but there's no emotion attached to it because if I don't think that I can outperform my best, I won't do it.
You said, I'm kind of in a training limbo. I don't know if you said rut, but you said you're just kind of trying to figure things out. And literally...
Identity crisis.
Lifting identity crisis. And literally, anytime I've hopped on Instagram, which is as little as possible, just make sure nothing's like blown up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that you started deadlifting, like literally right away. And you were approaching it like, not like 225, but I think you were pulling 300 or 400 or 500 pounds or something.
I pulled 7 in December, but I have been deadlifting consistently.
Yeah.
The deadlift is the only lift that never gave me problems.
Yeah.
So I've been able to deadlift. I just recently started squatting.
Okay.
Probably within the last 3 months.
Are you getting the itch?
And that's why I am. I'm enjoying it and I'm not in pain. So I'm able to enjoy my training. And I'm in kind of like, I'll still squat, bench, and deadlift, but most of my training is bodybuilding oriented. And that's the fact that I'm feeling strong training this way. I know that as soon as I pull back on volume and start training more to get stronger, I have a feeling I'll be able to get there. There's some limitations, like I haven't squatted with a straight bar in over 2 years, so I can't get under it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the time to work on my mobility, open up. My core is not as strong as it used to.
Can I give you a suggestion about the shoulders and getting your... Is that what you're talking about? Not getting the grip in on a straight bar? I was telling this to a client the other day, and for your first couple of... I wouldn't do a ton of shoulder mobility and crank on. Maybe a little bit to prime them. Maybe, I don't know. It's all debatable on how much. But maybe a little bit of priming of the cervical, thoracic, and then rotators. Mm-hmm. Open them up a little bit. Maybe a little lock, big 3, and maybe a little T-spine mobility, maybe a little bit of neck flossing. And then... Start with that. Then when you go to the straight bar, make sure you're getting under a squat bar, not the Texas power bar, right?
I can't even get under a squat bar.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. Put your hands just on the collars on the first set. Just out there. Don't even worry about gripping the bar. Mm-hmm. And then after a little bit of time, go a finger in closer. And then the next set, just go in. And then just working in. And then the first day, just try to get a finger or two on the bar without pain. And then slowly just bring it in. Don't worry about getting it so tight. Just get it on the bar and lock in, and maybe leave that as good enough.
Yeah, I've been able to get under a buffalo. That's how I can get under a buffalo and squat.
So you're not far off.
Getting there.
Because sometimes if the shoulder's bad enough, the buffalo won't be enough for some people. Because it's still here. You know what I mean?
Luckily, it's not my shoulder. It's my pecs. From like 2 years of...
Why didn't you tell me it was your pecs?
You didn't ask.
We said if I could get my shoulders under the bar.
No, I said I couldn't get under the bar.
Oh, well. Who knows?
You assumed
what kind of idiot has tight pecs so they can't get under the bar?
Guy put on 30 pounds of muscle. I don't know. Yeah, I'm also like walking around 255, biggest I've ever been in my whole life.
Yeah.
So it's just a different body. Doing a lot.
Your shoulders do look caps.
Oh, thanks, man.
And you look.
I actually was told today I look like a bodybuilder. So
You look like a bodybuilder, man.
I need to get my core stronger again. I haven't prioritized it.
Yeah.
So,
what are you gonna do for that?
A lot of planks. For me, especially with my hip and knee stuff, I feel fantastic. We're gonna do a lot of anterior rotations.
Yeah.
So a lot of side planks, Copenhagen side planks. Just the basics.
Yeah.
Basics that work.
Do you have 2 recommendations if you want to take them?
Mm-hmm.
Stir the pot, build up that endurance on the ball, doing circles and pauses and circles and one leg, and you can make this as hard as you need to. Stir the pot is like huge bang for your buck.
I love stir.
And it's not rough on most people. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of sheer, but most people can take that fine. Suitcase carries, going heavy for long distance, like make it burn. make that oblique and that QL and the hip flexor, make that burn and keep it locked in and build that core endurance to be able to grind through a squat.
You know what I used to do all the time, and I haven't done it in a long time, was I would just leave the house with like a 16-kilo kettlebell, and just go for a walk for 16 minutes.
That's rough.
And not let it touch the ground. Just switch hands whenever.
We used to do laps around the neighborhood carrying the kettlebell.
But you finish that walk, that 20-minute walk, and you feel like everything is just iron.
I know.
It's great.
It is good. Who's your favorite lifter? Who's your favorite power lifter?
That's a good question, man. That's a good question.
The first power lifter I saw today was Ed Cohen and then Matt Winning right there. Those two pretty good power lifters right there. Yeah, right. We walked down.
Ed Cohen picked me out of the crowd today. He's like, Paul. I was like, hi, Ed Cohen. I always call him Ed Cohen.
Ed Cohen.
No, just Ed.
Ed Cohen.
Hey, Ed Cohen.
Yeah.
Favorite lifter. I mean, when I was coming up and like Raw Unity was really big.
Yeah.
So the first lifters I ended up following really closely to Sam Bird and Janie. Right? Janie ended up being one of my closest friends.
Yeah.
And then Dan, obviously Dan Green.
I saw him talk to him today. He's still as big as ever. I'm like, you're still like doing this stuff? He's like, yeah.
Well, you're not an Instagram man. His training lately has been, can I swear?
Yeah.
He's been fucking crazy. He scored 727 for 5 on an SSB.
Really? It's like what he was doing or more like years ago.
For sure more. He did 750 paused for a set of 5 or something like that on the deadlift. Just ridiculous stuff. So him, to be fair, I don't really follow many lifters now.
Yeah.
The only lifters I follow are my friends. When I was coming up as a strength coach and starting to power lift, everyone on Elite, yourself, even like Julia, I used to follow Julia's lifting.
Did you see her? I saw Christian.
Christian was there. I hung out with Christian all day. Julia's back home with the kids.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone on Elite. Like, I couldn't boil it down.
It used to be cool to go read the logs.
I loved it. It was my favorite thing.
Yeah, it was like why no one ever got any work done.
Matt Kroc, I used to follow Matt Kroc like crazy because he's just nuts.
Yeah, he would post some funny stuff. And then, there's been a lot of top lifters. Mash was at the top of the game, but he was posting on there.
Mash is also a guy, I reached out to him a long time ago, and I met him. I saw him recently. He still remembered my name.
Yeah.
And
what'd you do to him?
What do you mean? What I did?
He still remembered your name.
I don't know. But something like that, I feel like it speaks to someone's character. Because when I met him, I was just a young kid.
Right.
And now he still remembers my name. Like, he actually had me on his podcast. And then, like, it's just really cool. Like, even Ed, for Ed to remember my name, to be able to pick me out of a crowd, for me to be able to go on Table Talk, even to be able to sit in front of you to call you my friend, someone who I looked up to.
Careful.
Well, listen, man.
Friend.
Oh, come on. Someone who's been a mentor to me.
Yeah.
I remember 2010 Arnold when it was at JL spot.
Yeah.
I'm competing on the amateur day and I'm watching you against Yarenbosch on the pro day, and then like that was sitting across the table for me.
Yeah.
So it's very surreal for me.
He bombed out and hung out in his underwear in the back though for the rest of the day. He stayed in his underwear because at one time Rudy was measuring him, but he had bombed and he was like real upset, so he just took his gear off and was just walking around in his underwear for most of the day. You don't remember that?
I don't remember. I wasn't in the back.
Okay. All right.
No shit. I met Chuck Bogapool that day. That was cool.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But man, I can't believe that was so long ago.
Neither can I. It was 14 years ago.
Yeah. What's your goal going forward? You talked about maybe you want to powerlift, but what's the goal? So if you don't have a shot at 2000, you don't want to mess with it. Or are you okay with 1975?
No, I want a shot at 2000. If I'm going to compete, I'm going to go.
You want to do it at
I want to do it
at a higher level.
I want to do it at a higher level. There's a lot of things that I'm not willing to compromise on that I used to be able to compromise on. But in general, like if you were asking me a goal, like where training fits into my life right now, training fits into my life as something that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
It fits into my life as obviously part of my job as a coach. I feel like I need to lead from the front.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'll do for the rest of my life. If for whatever reason I'm not in a position to compete in powerlifting, I can very easily do another bodybuilding show. And that was a phenomenal challenge when I did it. I know that it'll be a learning experience if I do it again. But it's the way I actually worded it to a friend of mine recently was, I really didn't see how additive training was to my life until it stopped being my life and started just being software that ran in the background.
Yeah.
I'm an athlete who trains and I eat, but I also have a full life.
Right.
So if I can continue to do that, push for strength, great. I know there's going to come a time where, when you talk about in-season, off-season, there's going to come a 12-week period where I have to be more selfish and prioritize training above some other things. And I'm willing to commit to that to see if I can get to where I want to go. But I have to go through that to prove to myself that I can or I can't. And so it's kind of the next 10 months.
How do you like doing the work that you do now compared to when you were a college strength coach? And what do you do now?
So for those who don't know, I coach a small roster of online lifters. So I think I have 41 lifters right now.
Yeah.
Ranging powerlifters, gen pop, lifestyle. I have some competitive bodybuilders as well. I also coach other coaches on their businesses. So I do a business mentorship.
Yeah.
I also have Coaches Corner University, where I do continuing education for coaches on a subscription-based website, and I have CEU accredited courses.
Where at?
coachescorneruniversity.com. And when I was a college strength coach, I very much looked at it as a selfless endeavor because it's quite a thankless job.
Right.
On the surface.
It doesn't usually pay very well, at least at like smaller places and assistants and all that stuff.
So,
unless you got paid a lot of money.
Well, for reference, I graduated with 2 master's degrees, and I had job offers for $33,000 and $51,000.
Isn't it crazy that someone like you could get 2 master's degrees?
I know. I'm pretty much illiterate.
Anyway, back to the job opportunities.
So I left that career after about 5 years.
2? Are you sure? 2 master's degrees?
2 master's degrees. An exercise science master's degree and a sports management master's degree. I left that career because I wasn't in a position where I could be in Canada and do the job the way I wanted to do it.
Right.
Just the system didn't work.
Right.
Ended up in a position where my values were being compromised, and I wasn't willing to do that.
Yeah.
So I stepped away. Fell into online coaching, and it's a much different avenue.
Yeah.
Like the wins are just as big for me because I look at the impact that I can have on other people's lives. And if I measure the value of my input into that person by their success and them achieving goals that they never thought that they could, that's a huge win. And now that I'm doing business mentorship, I've helped people create businesses that have literally changed their lives.
Yeah.
I've had people be able to quit their full-time jobs and be able to have people buy homes just because of the impact that I've had on their life. And that's huge for me.
Yeah.
Coaches Corner University is more of a passion project because I love teaching.
Yeah.
And it's not as hands-on and personal because I don't get a one-on-one interaction with each person.
Right.
But I still know that I'm contributing and I'm having impact.
Right.
So I much prefer what I do now, the freedom that I have to be able to pick up my laptop, drive 30 hours to Texas and still do my job. I make my own hours. My wife works with me now as well. Couldn't be better.
That's awesome. Yeah. So the follow-up question, what you do, mentoring people, coaching people, how do you handle it when someone doesn't take your advice? They're paying you, but they don't take your advice. They push back. What do you do when you can't help somebody?
I take a lot of the same approach you did with me, man. I let them make their own mistakes.
Yeah.
And I don't jump in and say, I told you so. I jump in and I say, I know what to do from here.
Yeah.
Because I've had my own failures.
Yeah.
I've been able to move past them. I can help them move past them as well. But you can only coach people who are ready to be coached. And for some, they come with an open mind right from the beginning. They don't have to have that rock bottom moment.
Right.
Some need that rock bottom moment. And administratively, I price my mentorship in a way that if you're going to pay for the mentorship, you're going to want to use it.
Right. Okay. So that's one way.
Yeah. I mean, if you're paying $7,500 for 3 months, you're going to be bought into the process.
Right.
And I've noticed that from when I started charging $3,000 all the way up to $7,500, the buy-in has improved the whole way.
Yeah.
So I kind of self-select for people who are already bought in at this point.
Yeah. Sometimes, man, it's hard just to get through to people. Like, let's go back 9 years with you. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, you don't need to train that much. Yeah, you don't need to do it. Sometimes people will listen. Other times they gotta hit rock bottom, and then with what I do, sometimes they gotta re-blow themselves apart. I do some calls with people that they're in a position where they're not like bad off, right? They're just in a bit of pain. They might have some pain in their back when they lift, maybe in their glute, down their leg, but it's not like killing them. And they have a consult with them because they're concerned, and their chiropractor hasn't been able to help them. Their PT hasn't been able to help them. And they're like, hey, so I went down the McGill rabbit hole and I found you. And a lot of these people, you can't talk them out of lifting. And sometimes you hear back from them a month later and say, hey, I'm in the hospital. I was deadlifting. I know you told me not to. And I had to get emergency surgery. What can we do to work together, like post-surgical? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's a tough one to get, because then sometimes you can't help them. Because once they F it up that much, whether surgery or not, a botched surgery, sometimes you literally can't help them because of that.
I mean, I'm stubborn to a fault, and I'm very fortunate that I didn't have to reach a rock bottom.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people are as fortunate to have mentors like yourself or people like that in their lives. So I try to be that for other people.
Yeah.
And
so that's basically your job.
That's basically my job. Yeah.
And it's a hell of a lot better than being a strength coach.
It's a hell of a lot better to be a strength coach.
Yeah. And you make the calls and
I make the calls. I work when I want to. I don't work when I want to. It's pretty special.
All right. So you kind of dodged the question. So what's the goal? Where are we at, Steve? 30%. Oh. What's the goal? And how long are you giving yourself for the powerlifting? So I know, so you didn't say it, but you said it, I want to total 2,000, that, 240 you'll beat that. So how long are you going to give yourself to hit that goal, and how are you going to approach it? You're going to bring your core up, you get back into the straight bar, but how long are you going to give yourself?
End of the year.
So one push.
One push. I have an artificial timeline, at least within the near future, because my wife and I want to have children.
Uh-huh.
So in 2025, the goal, we're going to start trying for kids.
Yeah.
And her timeline, she's competing in wellness. She'll probably do 2 or 3 shows.
Yeah.
Probably just to requalify for nationals. And then the goal is to get her pro card at nationals and then do a pro show. All within a very small window. Then her recovery period will start. During that period is when I'll transition to powerlifting.
Yeah.
Give it a shot and try to do meet by the end of the year. If that doesn't happen, I'm totally fine to back away and be a dad. It's honestly, it's the thing I'm looking forward to the most.
Really? Okay, I love it, man. All right, well, congrats, man. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
All right, man. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Remember, like, subscribe, share, click the notifications, because we drop videos twice a week. We also have a live stream every Friday where I answer your questions. Click below to see the latest video that we uploaded. Also, for our products, our CBD, our books that correspond with these videos, it's down in the description. For more information about all things Brian Carroll and PowerAct Strength, go to poweractstrength.com. You can book a consult both virtually and in person with me. Enjoy your week, and thank you so much.